DeepL lays off 25% of workforce for AI native pivot, the death of the single prompt with multi-stage AI pipelines, and trust architecture and the shift left in localization. Welcome to Locanuku.com, localization news you can use. Imagine firing a quarter of your entire staff. Not because you are running out of money and not because the market turned against you, but because the very product you built has become so hyper-efficient, it is actually optimizing your own internal teams out of existence. It is a wild concept. But when Jarek Kutylowski, the CEO over at DeepL, sent out that memo announcing the layoff of 250 employees, roughly 25% of their workforce, the shockwave through the industry was visceral. And we are not talking about some bloated legacy agency trying to stop the bleeding. We are talking about a machine translation juggernaut that literally just raised $300 million at a $2 billion valuation. It's the ultimate paradox of the AI era. Kutylowski framed it as a very deliberate, preemptive structural choice to pivot toward an AI-first organizational model. For traditional service providers, this is terrifying. We are witnessing the literal architects of AI translation deciding that traditional corporate hierarchy, the mid-level management, the sprawling departmental silos, the human-in-the-loop dependencies, are fundamentally incompatible with the autonomous tech they are building. DeepL is transitioning away from being a widget that translates text and shifting into an AI platform that deploys autonomous agents for business process automation. Kutylowski is stepping in personally to lead a task force in founder mode, actively flattening the hierarchy toward one-person teams. If you are sitting in the C-suite of any traditional language service provider right now, you have to be sweating. Traditional LSPs have spent 40 years building their entire economic engine around headcount, service hours, and human throughput. Now Slater is basically saying that model is over. They have officially retired the term LSP. The new taxonomy splits the industry into LSIs, which stands for Language Solutions Integrators, and LTPs, or Language Technology Platforms. Providing a service is just not enough anymore. You have to integrate solutions, or you have to own the platform. Recent data shows that 57% of the so-called super agencies experienced revenue declines. The high overhead per word translation model is collapsing under its own weight because the underlying technology producing the actual translated word has become a total commodity. It is a massive revenue misalignment. Large language models can generate text at lightning speed, and clients expect massive cost reductions, pushing the per word rate to fractions of a cent. The profit margins for traditional vendors are getting crushed. Nimdzi Insights just validated this in their updated 2026 Nimdzi 100 rankings. For the first time in the history of the index, they are including pure technology solutions in their ranking criteria, which completely rewrites the definition of valuation. Historically, your value was measured by how many millions of words your linguists could process. Now, the industry is measured by technology licensing, subscription revenue, and AI data curation infrastructure. You see companies like Genentech out of China and President Translation Service in Taiwan holding incredibly strong top 15 spots. The definition of industry power has fundamentally migrated from human capacity to infrastructure sophistication. That infrastructure shift is the entire theme of the May 2026 issue of Multilingual Magazine, featuring Isabel Andrio of Translated on the cover. The core thesis is that the era of questioning AI, the panic, the existential dread, that's over. The mandate now is to build the human architecture required to govern these models. It's about closing the pilot to production gap. Everyone has a cool AI pilot, but very few have a safe production environment. You see this adaptation playing out aggressively through market consolidation. Look at what the translation people are doing. They just bought Kokarek, their 5th acquisition in 3 years. But the critical detail is that Kokarek specializes in multilingual chatbots. Enterprise buyers don't just want translated strings, they want tech-enabled communication systems deployed natively in their markets. So, let's unpack this infrastructure concept, because there's one acronym dominating every conversation today: TCO, or total cost of ownership. What does TCO actually mean for a buyer in a landscape where the words themselves are practically free? Think about it like outfitting a massive commercial logistics company with a brand new drone delivery fleet. The drones are relatively cheap up front compared to traditional trucks, and they fly incredibly fast. You think your delivery costs just dropped by 90%. But if you don't build specialized charging infrastructure across the city, hire aviation compliance officers, and staff a rapid response repair team for when drones inevitably crash, your total operational cost over 2 years skyrockets. You end up paying engineers to fix broken systems instead of delivering packages. In localization, LLMs drop the raw cost of generating a word by easily 80 to 90%. But the alignment tax is where the real cost lives. That tax is what you pay senior software engineers and subject matter experts to constantly go in and fix hallucinated HTML tags, broken UI code, and culturally tone-deaf marketing output. If you buy cheap AI words without investing heavily in governance infrastructure, your total cost of ownership explodes. You actually lose money. Now, on one hand, you could argue this is just AI washing, using AI as a futuristic PR shield to trim pandemic-era overhiring, which Sam Altman has explicitly warned about. Trimming bloat is undeniably part of the equation. But on the other hand, dismissing this purely as an accounting trick is dangerous. The structural shifts, dismantling silos to create AI-augmented teams, are tangible. Companies are betting their multi-billion-dollar valuations on the premise that future profit margins will be strictly defined by the ratio of AI agents to human employees. If we are shifting to managing fleets of AI agents, how do we govern the heavy lifting? The value of a language solutions integrator is in the orchestration, and that is why the concept of the single massive prompt is completely dead and buried. You cannot dump a complex user manual into a single prompt box and expect production-ready output. Crowden is proving this out with their multi-stage AI pipelines. Instead of forcing one model instance to understand context, enforce glossaries, format code tags, and check its own work all at once, you chain highly specialized, isolated steps together. You have a step for context preparation, a step for self-correction, and crucially, a step dedicated to ambiguity filtering. Let's look at a scenario. Say you manage localization for two apps, a music streaming service and an outdoor hiking GPS app. Both have a UI button that says track. In the music app, it's a song. In the hiking app, it's a verb to record your path. If you feed track into a standard LLM, it has no idea which domain it is in. It guesses, gets it wrong, and you have to pay a human linguist to log a bug and fix it. Crowden's ambiguity filter stops that bleed by catching that single word before the translation phase even begins. It analyzes the string, flags the radically different meanings, and automatically pulls context from a Figma design file, or pauses and routes that isolated word to a human manager for clarification. You engineer the error out of the machine before it ever touches the target language. That level of orchestration requires immense, perfectly validated data. Willow Data just launched Inky, a proprietary platform explicitly built for frontier AI data production. It attacks the multimodal reality of these models, handling text, images, complex audio and video in one unified pipeline, fueled by Willow Works, an on-demand workforce of over 500,000 vetted experts. The magic is how they govern that massive workforce using automated benchmark gates and dynamic linters, which are tools that check code syntax and formatting in real time. In a frontier AI pipeline, you are asking human experts to evaluate highly complex subjective outputs, like the emotional empathy of an AI voice agent. A benchmark gate is a dynamic hidden test injected into the worker's flow. The system seamlessly feeds the expert a piece of data where it already knows the definitively correct answer. If the expert fails, the gate instantly closes. They are booted out, and their work is flagged. It is real-time algorithmic quality control overlaid onto human judgment. When you combine that governance with multi-stage pipelines, the efficiency gains are unbelievable. Alwyn, the global affiliate marketing network, partnered with the Claro for language services and Localize for AI orchestration. They accelerated their turnaround time by 57%, crushing a 28-day launch cycle down to under 12 days. Crucially, they cut manual internal review work by up to 80%. They reallocated 3 to 5 full-time internal employees trapped in copy-pasting strings to high-value strategic work without a budget increase. But there's a systemic failure looming: the asset bottleneck. Translastars argues that when an enterprise AI program plateaus, everyone blames the LLM. But the bottleneck is actually the foundational linguistic assets. If you feed the most advanced model an inconsistent Excel spreadsheet from 2018, it will faithfully generate state-of-the-art garbage. A glossary has to be a dynamic instruction system with market-specific tone guidelines, negative constraints, and before and after examples. This gives rise to a completely new role: the language intelligence specialist. Their job is not to translate. It is to curate taxonomies and manage the feedback loops that make AI reliable. And the painful irony here is that while we talk about advanced intelligence, LanguageWire points out companies are still using manual exports to spreadsheets. Those spreadsheets break complex software builds, Git repositories, and data workflows, causing massive version control nightmares. We spent 20 years begging clients to adopt translation memories, which are specialized databases that store previously translated segments so you don't translate the same sentence twice in proper XML. Now we have to convince them to use benchmark gates. It looks like bureaucratic red tape, but it's actually systems engineering. The bureaucracy is the safety harness preventing fatal bugs. We are transitioning from pulling levers on the factory floor to engineering the machine itself. And that means deeply understanding where the machine interacts with the user. Localization is shifting far to the left, embedding straight into product design. Gideon Hod, director of product operations at Turo, treats localization issues not as subjective preferences, but as hard production bugs. By integrating Crowden directly into Figma, UX designers watch translated text populate dynamically inside their UI mockups in real time. They catch a notoriously long German compound word, breaking a checkout button before a single line of front-end code is written. Sitecore AI is mirroring this on the marketing side, centralizing site translation inside a dedicated tab within their CMS dashboard. And Talgi is pushing this even closer to the live end user with their Edit What You See framework. A product manager spots a clunky translation on a staging app, clicks the text, types the correction, and the system automatically updates the underlying translation key in the repository, bypassing developer tickets entirely. The real challenge isn't the words anymore, it's the cultural adaptation. Leslie Burton analyzed Tide's entry into the French market and perfectly framed this as trust architecture. Tide translated the UI perfectly, but they missed the trust architecture. What converts a user in London will not automatically convert a user in Paris. Imagine launching a telehealth app in Japan. The medical intake form translation is perfect, but you use a hyper-casual pop-up video chat for consultations. In the US, that drives engagement. In Japan, the cultural expectation of medical authority requires high formality. A casual pop-up feels disrespectful. The translation is flawless, but the psychological cues are wrong, destroying the medical branding. Tide faced this. UK fintech marketing leans into speed and disruption. French SME buyers demand institutional legitimacy and stability. The French app functioned like a translated British app, and the disruptive posture alienated the market. You see Wingy studying this as they expand to 27 languages in the MENA region. You cannot just translate enter credit card into Arabic. You have to natively integrate the specific regional payment gateways local consumers trust. The Chanjan Group is executing the physical version of this with their Vast Ocean Plan 2.0. Expanding into the Middle East and Africa, they are avoiding circus localization, just translating the dashboard UI. They are executing true deep localization, physically embedding R&D centers and manufacturing plants directly within the region. In the most advanced AI native tech companies, the traditional title of localization manager is too restrictive. When you manage trust architecture and cultural psychology, you are performing high-level regional product management. And you better claim that territory fast, because content is exploding in real time. Static text is embedded in code, but audio and video are infinitely more complex. SoundHound AI booked $44.2 million in revenue in Q1, absorbing a $25 million net loss because they are on an acquisition tear, buying SyncQ3, Amelia AI, and LivePerson to build an agentic voice platform called Oasis. They are targeting the death of stilted automated phone trees. Oasis is engineered for chaotic environments where users interrupt and seamlessly switch languages mid-conversation. Imagine a frantic emergency room triage call. A paramedic is balancing clinical Latin, rapid-fire Spanish to translate for the family, and English ER slang like crashing, all in the same sentence. A traditional system melts down. An agentic platform has to track that chaotic input and translate it live without forcing the speaker into a single language lane. We see identical leaps in video. DeepBrain AI integrated ByteDance's C-Dance 2.0 model into AI studios for enterprise-grade script-to-video generation with highly accurate lip sync and dynamic dubbing across 150 languages. Niche players like Perso AI are hyper-focusing on the Spanish to English corridor, tackling Spanglish and regional registers to translate the vibe of a Colombian financial influencer into American English. Zoom rolled out its beta voice translator, and X is leveraging Grok to automatically translate massive volumes of posts in the feed. Yet amid all this invisible software, Vasco Electronics launched the Vasco Translator M4, a single-button physical hardware device. Why? Because navigating a phone app breaks eye contact and human connection. A tactile device grounds the technology in the physical world. Live events are also transforming. Wordly and Transcription City are proving that live AI translation and flawless transcripts are the ultimate test of operational competence. Transcripts are highly durable AI search assets that feed corporate knowledge bases. Cloudinary is automating this with media flows, generating chapter markers and localized subtitles to make massive libraries discoverable. Demand is exploding. TransPerfect Media co-hosted a massive panel at the Marché du Film at Cannes, focusing on African interactive entertainment. Nani AI secured $10 million in funding in India. Exotel Acquai hired the Dubverse team to integrate AI dubbing, and Palabra is launching streaming native text-to-speech engines. But here is the hard reality check. A Trust Gap poll showed 55% of users will hang up on an AI voice agent after 20 seconds. We are scaling the uncanny valley at the speed of light. Speed is a massive liability when a synthetic voice misunderstands a dialect and gives the wrong medical dosage. This brings us perfectly to the paranoia premium. We are moving from dizzying speed to the regulatory sledgehammer. Europe is stepping in. Aglatech 14 published a sobering breakdown of the EU AI Act. The Wild West is over. If you touch medical, legal, or safety content in Europe, strict algorithmic transparency and rigorous GDPR documentation are mandatory by law. You can no longer just say, the AI translated it. You must extensively document the data flow and definitively prove human supervision protocols. Companies are building products for this paranoid regulatory environment. Elixir Technologies unveiled Elixir Muse, a local-first AI assistant that cryptographically does not log or train on user inputs, bundled with KYC and HIPAA compliance checks. Extreme privacy is the new premium differentiator. Look at the liability with DocuGov.ai. They launched an AI letter generator that drafts highly formal legal appeals across 130 countries. It isn't just translating. It is generating jurisdiction-aware legal content based on local statutes. The risk profile is astronomical. If the AI hallucinates a statute in a Polish eviction notice, the user loses their home. The civic sector is pushing back. California Senate Bill 1360 actively lowers the threshold for language access mandates down to 5,000 citizens and explicitly outlaws the use of only machine translation, legally mandating human oversight. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons is currently recruiting a senior Chinese linguist for well over $10,000 a month. In the age of free AI, they pay that because the human is the final authority. You absolutely do not ask ChatGPT to translate a chemical weapon inspection protocol. The European Commission just appointed Marcin Stryjecki as the new Director for Translation, managing diplomatic complexity across 24 official languages with incredibly rigid quality frameworks. And in healthcare, Globo just won a Modern Healthcare Workplace Award for their culture of blending human linguists with advanced tech. When that blend fails, it is chilling. An Ontario Auditor General report found that 9 AI scribe systems literally fabricated medical data the patient never said, and 17 completely missed nuanced mental health details. This is exactly why agentic workflow governance is vital. It is the difference between using basic cruise control on an empty highway and deploying an autonomous system in a chaotic city intersection. If cruise control drifts, you nudge the wheel. If autonomous AI hallucinates a green light, people die. We are reaching a point where guaranteed, legally bonded human-on-one translation becomes a massive premium luxury product. Institutional paranoia is creating a renaissance for the true expert linguist. Industry professionals are redefining their worth. Magdalena Jurovic pointed out that translating ISO quality management documentation into 12 languages is not a translation job. It is a highly rigorous terminology management project. If an engineering manual says, engage the hydraulic safety brake, and the Spanish AI translation uses a conversational phrase, meaning use the stopper, an operator might use a physical wheel chock, drop a 2-ton pallet, and trigger a massive safety recall. You have to build the robust glossary before running the text. Stefan Heige sees this demand for precision, leading to an artisanship comeback. True authenticity and human handcrafted skill are becoming massive premium differentiators in a world flooded with artificial content. Darren Verdi Ashton echoed this from a liability perspective. Monolingual review is not bilingual validation. Just because a text reads smoothly in English doesn't mean it correctly reflects the technical nuance of the source language. And the cognitive load is exhausting. Vivetta Jean's research highlights the mental strain of MTPE, which stands for Machine Translation Post-Editing, the grueling process of fixing an AI's highly confident but contextually wrong mistakes. We cannot pay senior linguists pennies to perform forensic analysis on AI output. Lebor Safar issued an urgent warning about the IP trap, noting that eager freelancers aren't reading end-user license agreements. Many foundational AI engines explicitly claim perpetual licenses to uploaded data. The upcoming Digital Fairness Act in Europe is going to force a massive reckoning on data sovereignty. Before we get into the final takeaways, just a reminder that you can find more practical insights like this at locaniku.com, your dedicated source for global content strategy and language tech. So as we move fully into the era of language operations, or LangOps, where we architect autonomous systems rather than just translating strings, the professionals on the ground are fighting back. The vibe coding movement is seeing senior pros with no computer science backgrounds use LLMs to build their own custom LQA scanners, language quality assurance tools that automatically check for brand consistency and errors to control their own niche workflows. The fundamental choice right now is incredibly stark. Efficiency gains have been absorbed by the market, and traditional compensation models are breaking. Are you going to be the exhausted editor getting paid pennies to fix the machine's confident mistakes? Or are you going to be the strategic architect building the cultural framework, the benchmark gates, and the trust architecture that the machine relies on to function? The market will pay incredibly handsomely for the architect. And that's your daily dose of localization know-how from locaniku.com, localization news you can use. The biggest takeaway today is that the localization industry is not shrinking. It is transforming. Survival now depends on being the person who designs the AI native engine, rather than just being a replaceable gear grinding away inside it. Stay furiously curious and keep building.